So what we're looking at, first of all, is the history and the use of Bladder FX. And I think primarily what we're going to talk about really here is Dick Smith, the godfather of makeup effects, regarded by every makeup effects artist on the planet, I think. And we looked into this, and really, and this is open for discussion, but I believe the first use of a bladder makeup effect was probably The Exorcist in 1972.
Yeah.
So that would have been the effect where we saw Linda Blair's throat expand and blow up. And I think, Dick came up with the idea, well, how are we going to do this?
Yeah.
So the best way is to inflate air. So literally, Dick made a large rubber bag that was then inflated off camera with air, so that you got kind of an oversized version of that happening on Linda's neck, creating that effect. I think from that point, the next time we really saw bladders being used, and it was obviously something that Dick had then progressed with, was the Fury, using throbbing veins. The difference there was, rather than using an actual bladder piece like this, I think what Dick was doing was taking prosthetic appliances and then putting channels into them.
Yeah.
So that when you inflated the air, it would actually make the prosthetic stretch out itself.
The prosthetic, and more veiny, less of a... Exorcist was a big bag. They were more refined and small.
Yeah. And then a technique that he then pushed forward from the Fury into scanners, where I think Rick Baker was assisting and helping at that point. And again, really pushing the idea of an appliance with channels in it for veins that you could then pump liquid through or air to get kind of that vein growing effect. Once that had occurred, and I think Rick Baker had seen the efficaciousness of it and how good it was, and obviously it was then spreading like a virus through the industry. I think Rob Bottin then took it and went crazy with it in The Howling.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen The Howling, and you want to see bladders perhaps being, lingered on a little too longly by the camera, check it out, and there's lots of, and then we were off and running to the races. Let's face it, 1980s. I think every producer was literally going, "We want that bladder stuff. That's what we need in our movie. How much is it? I don't care. Let's just do it, kid." So we saw a lot of bladders. A lot of movies were made where effects guys were clearly behind the scenes, either blowing down tubes or squeezing balls or doing something like that, because every film seemed to have a bladder effect transformation.
Everywhere.
I think The Beast Within was probably the one that I remember the most, because it went bladder nuts. It was like they're just everywhere, guys' heads.
Without reason, right? It was just...
Yeah. So I think like every fad and fashion, it went a bit crazy for a while and then pulled back. Obviously, American Werewolf in London, some bladder effects in there, I think on the back and stuff like that. I mean, you can get technical. A bladder is just a device like this, but I've always believed anything using air to inflate an area of the skin is still a bladder effect.
Yeah.
What we're going to concentrate in this course really is the traditional kind of inflating mechanisms.
Latex bladders.
Yes, exactly. I think in terms of where it's gone in the future, there's been a couple of outstanding moments.
Oh, yeah.
I think Tony Gardner pushed it to another level in Darkman, where he used 2 layers of bladders, liquid and air.
Yeah.
In fact, there's still some mystery about how he did those effects. And if you want to go back and again check out Darkman, a Sam Raimi movie with Liam Neeson, there's some spectacular melting flesh bladder work that was done. Very, very fast and poppy.
Yeah.
And then myself, we did an effect in a film called Wishmaster, where silicone was just starting to become prevalent in the industry. And what we did there was, rather than doing a bladder effect trying to move silicone skin, we actually used rods behind a puppet to push the skin out. We found that silicone would actually change its color when you put pressure on it. So something that was painted, if you pushed with a rod, it would actually go white. So we created rods behind the skin, and by pushing the rods, we found it gave a bladdering effect. Because sometimes maybe using a bladder on a skin that's like a silicone might be more difficult to get an effect out of. Although silicones are very soft now.
Sure.
But really, that's kind of where we're at, I think, in terms of the history of bladders. So again, like so many things in the makeup effects industry, we have to tip our hat to the great Dick Smith, who was thinking about this stuff in ways that we weren't. I mean, and I think Altered States as well.
Yeah. Oh,
to
yeah.
take a little step backwards, I think, was where he refined the technique behind it. And if you go back and look at some of the tests which are available, I think you can see online now, there's some stupendous stuff where he's doing rippling, arm
ripples
effects,
up and down the arm,
and which I believe, working with probably Marcel Valcoutier again, I think he actually rigged up the bladders to a piano kind of keyboard system, so you could actually play the bladders and they would inflate. You know, so tip of the hat to Dick, who was, you know, making this stuff in his basement in Larchmont, New York, and creating these great techniques that years later studios would be cashing in on, and fixed houses would be doing. But that's what we're going to be doing.